Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inside the Firm. I am one of your hosts, Al Gore. Your other host, Lance Cayko, is at home right now. It's during a break, basically, right in between Christmas and New Year. So on this episode, we have a great interview with Devon Tilly. Devon Tilly has a podcast, The Art of Construction. He also owns a window rep firm, Mountain View Windows and Doors in Denver and in Grand Junction. Had a great conversation with him, so I know and I hope you'll like it. So that's coming up. But before we go to that, it's coming around the New Year's, so I want to talk just briefly about New Year's resolutions and not what they actually are, but how to actually do them. So starting in Thanksgiving, I tested a strategy that did not work out. It half worked out. And I'm going to continue. I'm going to modify it, which I already have, and then continue it for the rest of the year. Now, what I thought would work out was wake up early, which I kind of do anyways, and then set alarms, like a bunch of alarms, like 45 minutes later, do this. Half hour later, do this. 45 minutes later, do that. And it kind of worked, meaning instead of doing 4 or 5 things in the morning, I only did one. But waking up and then having an alarm of like when to leave, when to arrive at work, when to start work, those 3 alarms helped. Breaking up even more than that, I just kind of blew past them. So I would recommend whatever your goal is, if it's to reduce it, reduce it to 1 or 2 things that you could possibly do in the morning, and then do those before anything else, and then have an alarm and a time to do those things. Because when I did just do 1 thing in the morning or 2 things in the morning, what happened and what was crazy, I even had an alarm, when to stop work, so that, and then stop work to plan for the next day. And then I had when to leave work. And what was crazy and what was cool is that I was actually getting work done on time and ready to go when my alarms came. So like knowing that those alarms, those physical alarms actually were going to go off, at 5:15 or, whenever it was. So it organized my day in my brain so that I could actually accomplish what I wanted to, and then do it in the time that I wanted to. A second thing too, some people have resolutions to get fit, lose weight, things like that. If you do, just one lesson that I've learned is get rid of the gimmicks. I've tried the gimmicks. A couple years ago, I lost 20 pounds, which I wasn't ever too big overweight, but I'd try. Got a membership to the gym, ate the protein bars, did, all the crazy things, took cold showers, and it turned out that going back to the basics, literally doing what the military does, was the thing that lost weight easily. So what I did was I ran 2 times a day. 2 times a week. That was it. 2 times a week. On Tuesday, I would do a shorter run, a jog, about 2 miles. And then on Sunday, I still do this, I do a longer one, which is about 10K, anywhere between 5.5 and 7.5 miles. Just very, very easy, very slow. Listen to a book on tape, stop and write down notes whenever I want to on my phone. So I did that. I did push-ups. And the cool thing, you've probably heard on this podcast that I do a lot of push-ups on Friday. And I started with 1 set of 50. And then I waited an hour, and then I do another set of 50. And then wait an hour and do another set of 50. And then wait an hour and then do another set of 50. You get the pattern. And what I learned from that is that if you can do something once, you can probably wait an hour and do it again. And I had to, it was extremely hard in the beginning. And then I'd have to redo my form because my form wasn't the best. So like I thought that'd get easy, but then I'd do better form and then it'd get harder and then I'd get sick. So then I'd go down to like 35 the next week and then I'd build back up to 50 and then I'd get up to 65, 75 and then I'd realize my form was getting bad. So I'd go back to do perfect, like all the way down to the ground, all the way up. But anyways, it's been really, really helpful. I really enjoyed it. And the third thing that I did was eat a salad on Tuesdays and Thursdays for lunch. The rest of my diet, if you want to call that, is all over the board. It is not healthy. It consists mainly of taco salad, which is very light on salad and very heavy on chips and salsa and delicious meat and avocados and just really, really good stuff. Guac, if I don't want the chopped up avocados. So honestly, it wasn't that hard. And I lost the 20 pounds from, 190 to 170. Gained some back just because of Christmas, eating a lot of sweets. Probably need to knock that out. But all the gimmicks didn't really work. Weightlifting and all that, it was running. That was probably the main one. You could probably just take that and that would be the one to do. Eating salads and doing push-ups. Last thing, this is just general. I don't know if I'd call it advice, but use the tools around you. And there's 3 tools I want to talk about. You've probably heard about them before. So 2 days ago, I had a project that I was going to show to a person, and it was all done in Revit, and I wanted it to look nice. So what did I do? I used Enscape. Enscape for Revit, enscape3d.com is where you get it. And basically, I was able to plug in my Revit file. There's just a little on your tab of plugins. I publish it to Enscape, change some materials around, took rendered some images, which took no time whatsoever. And I had about 5 or 6 rendered images in, just a half hour of messing with textures and playing around. And if you remember back in the day, 5 or 6 images, I remember we'd only try to get 3 images. One from the front, one from the back, and one interior because you'd hit render and it would take 4 hours. Not the case anymore. So if you haven't tried Enscape, Enscape 3D.com, go there, free trial. There's no excuse. If you're using Revit or SketchUp, go ahead and give it a try. I think it plugs into some other things too. You'll have to check, but use that. Also check out bimsmith.com. Bimsmith.com. Basically, it has a whole bunch of awesome components for you. It has manufactured information. It's not just a random component that someone made in their basement. It's a component by a manufacturer that you could buy, get the spec from, that has probably been through some sort of testing. So you know that you're getting something that when you supply it to the customers, it's actually real. It's not nonsense. It's the correct dimensions. Dimensions are huge. Tolerances are huge. So get the right stuff for your model. And it also has a product called Forge, which is a wall and roof and ceiling builder, which is absolutely awesome. So go check that out. So without further ado, I hope you guys have a great New Year's. I hope you make some goals and that you tie those down to time and also fundamentals. And I hope it works out well for you. And here is Devon Tilly. And I think we'll just end the podcast after that. So hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and a good New Year's. Bye for now. I'm here with Devon Tilly of The Art of Construction, which is a podcast, but I feel like it's more than that, and Mountain View Windows and Doors. let's just jump in. You said you were just listening to our podcast, Inside the Firm, as you came up.
Right.
What was your what were you listening to? You had a thought.
Yeah, well, I just walked in, had a wonderful drive up from Denver to Longmont here, and it was so ironic that I'm a fan, I'm a student of the Inside the Firm podcast, and I was pulling in, and right when I pull in, it was like, Alex is, so I think Lance asked you the question or something, how it was teed up, and you're like, well, I don't really like the word art. And I'm like, I'm going to walk in and tell him that, and we go from there.
So we had a little pre-discussion. My stick with it is that it's almost seemed like art is higher than construction or architecture. You come from construction, I come from architecture.
Well said, yeah.
They intermix. And what I try to get across inarticulately is that what you do, the advanced puzzle making that architects do, right, and construction people do, is a high enough art itself. You don't need to call someone else in or call yourself something else to give yourself, your ego, a boost, when your ego should be boosted, because the advanced, and you know this, how buildings go together, that is so advanced, and to make that beautiful and actually stand too, congratulations.
Right. And that's really like the journey I've went on. Like I called my podcast The Art of Construction, because you can't have one without the other. And I've lived in this world. I've got a marketing degree in college and went to the corporate side of supply chain. And I found it was always one against the other. And I was like, it doesn't need to be that way. So above the art of construction is technology and people. And you can never lose touch of the handshake, because that's what actually makes the art come to life.
Yeah.
Is really what makes me tick, and why I started a podcast 4.5 years ago, before podcasting was cool. And that's what it's like. It's my juice. It's my drug. Like meeting these people that are just so amazing, that architects and you don't know what you don't know. And until I did some of my own projects and really got into the plans to learn the science behind what they have to do, that just gets me so jazzed. And that's kind of where we're going now with the technology of, it's amazing out there. I've been listening to your podcast on, you and I both just jumped in with both feet, not really knowing what we're doing with Autodesk University, but there's a huge need for connecting the dots in this construction world, that it's rapidly changing. And we kind of joke about on my podcast about crusty contractor, that the resistance to change. Well, you have to change now, because you can't just use hand drawing plans, and you can't just always do it this way anymore, because technology's passed all that up.
Yeah. So you started 4 years ago in the podcast?
Yeah.
And I want to put a pin in technology plus people, because I want to explore that more. But I want to go back to, I was just at Autodesk University. I was at a booth, BIM Smith, which is, we're kind of partnering together on some stuff. But I was just chatting to the guys, and I think I saw you walk in, and I yelled, Devon, what are you doing here? It was weird seeing you there, but exciting seeing you there, because I think the week before we were just talking about Revit, and then now you're at Autodesk University. Autodesk is the company that makes all the software for design, everything from cars to buildings to widgets. So why did you decide to go, and what did you get from that?
Yeah, so
and you can say nothing. You could say it was
no.
terrible.
I'll probably say too much, and I have a habit of that, and I'm really trying to be precise with my words. If there's one thing I've learned, is the Tasmanian Devon can go off, and you have to make sure that you get the point across, and that's one of the things my amazing coaches on my platform are helping me with. But you don't know what you don't know, and if you don't put yourself in your customer's shoes or where you think the industry is going, it's hard to talk the talk without walking the walk. And so I really believe technology is changing the art of construction. So I'm learning how. So we're also working with Ben at BIM Smith and these other companies, and we're finding the right partners where we're going to be doing a deep dive series. And that was the big impetus of going there. I actually signed up. I'm doing your class on the
Revit rocket ship.
So I'm just watching all these videos and just digesting this stuff. And I'm not digesting it to say I'm going to go be a Revit monkey, I've heard, or a BIM manager, as I've heard, all these new jobs. What I want to do is know enough about these different pieces to connect the dots. Because I truly believe we need more resources for that, because there's this huge educational curve that you don't know what you don't know. So I'm trying to know enough to be dangerous and tell that message from, I'm trying to, the KISS model of a 3rd grade level of saying someone who hasn't ever used any of this stuff could live and take what is building informational modeling and how does it fit into lasers and robots and Revit and the different things to connect the dots, what I call the art to execute in construction.
Yeah. So when you're looking at technology, you're looking at Revit and BIM. BIM as a broader set. What other technologies, this is going to be a 2-parter. So what other technologies are you looking at? Or is it just mainly BIM?
So I'm going to tee this up to kind of maybe say a little bit about, from the global perspective of why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I'm connecting the dots with my companies and how I truly give and be the test lab. So globally, I have my megaphone, The Art of Construction, and that's every other week we have a global and timeless fireside chat. Like, I'm honored to be on your show here today. But then what we're going to do on the opposite week is a deep dive series where we connect, and it's really digging deep. And I think we need to do some more of those conversations than kind of just run across the top. But how to do that is that I have a regional brand. I own a company that was started in 2006. I bought in 2012 called Mountain View Window and Door. And windows and doors are one thing that in my corporate days on the supply chain, one of my mentors, and I've just met, I've just been so blessed to have so many awesome mentors in my little 15-year window of doing this. And he's like, Devon, there's 2 things that'll make or break a construction project. And this is, going on 15 years ago. It's either the foundation or the windows and doors. And I said, tell me more. It's like, if you don't have the right foundation, you're going to fight it the whole way. And if you don't have the windows and doors right, it's that pendulum where you seal everything in and everything just goes haywire. So you have to really have the business behind those 2 things. And I'm like, well, that makes me jump out of bed, but not foundations. So that's where I went into windows and doors. And so I bought this company I've been building, and windows and doors in the contemporary glass house movement have become more and more critical, but yet it's still done like it's always been done. And you can't do that when you're talking the glass house anymore. So I'm going there to say, how do I take all these amazing companies and walls and work smarter, not harder, that I'm calling Tools 2.0 in my regional, and then locally, I'm flipping everything upside down. Of what I've always done is I go and what everyone else does, I try to do the opposite. And that's how I really think about that. And that's easier said than done. But all the way back to the beginning in my corporate days working, I had 4 states and we had a door shop and a distribution center. And my job was to take the corporate program, whether it's a new vinyl window that they have a software. So instead of faxing in your orders, I would come in and try to train you on how to use this software. And I got to do it at 28 lumber yards, from Farmington, New Mexico, up to Laramie, Wyoming, and all of Colorado in between. So those are very different markets. So I spent 4 years trying to train these guys that have always done it this way. And I finally just said, I don't fit, and I started over. But it was a good lesson for me to figure out how it was done, to then kind of do it my own way, if you will. So I went to work for a couple other dealers and then bought out a dealer. And so I've always been in the supply chain, specifically to windows and doors, that I think are really a critical part, because they're built in furniture, they're structural, you see through them. So there's a lot of construction architectural detail in that. So then I've taken the flip it upside down as your traditional showroom or design center, or I've taken that, and then I started doing all this research on co-working, because my job is all about handshakes, connecting the architect to the designer to the builder. And so now we're calling those experience centers. So we just opened one in Grand Junction. So we book in the state with 2 of them, and it's taking co-working in the design center and the showroom and putting them all together in a space that the anchor tenant is Mountain View Window and Door. And then now with Art of Construction, we're actually bringing in different people using the Art of Construction voice and brand to actually be the test lab, to take products and test them, but actually like really use them in a legitimate thing, because I want to turn this stuff from a video game into a business, and who's going to do that?
Have you, you saw a lot of booths. Did you see Enscape and some of the other 3D plugins?
Yep.
I'm wondering, just a concept, I'm throwing it at you.
Yeah.
You don't even need a reaction, because I have some other things I want to talk about too. you talked about a showroom and doing something new. So I've been in your showroom. It's a great showroom where
Thank
you have
you.
the doors and windows and all that stuff.
And we're redoing the whole thing again.
Yeah. But another thing that sometimes the architects can't get the client to pay off on is renderings. And renderings are expensive. But there's new things like Enscape that are coming along where basically you take Revit and you hit a button and it goes into Enscape and it shows real materials and everything. What if you were the guy that, let's say you are going into BIM, you could show them their actual windows and doors. You could have the actual windows and doors in 3D view. So that showroom concept is at a next level.
And that's the test lab I'm creating. And that's why I appreciate you guys setting up. We did a virtual meeting where, and you were kind of like, Devon, why would you want to learn how Revit? Like, I don't want to learn to be I want to learn how I can take Revit and take a window manufacturer and put that into there in our experience center or test lab to actually begin with the end in mind, meaning the decision makers, and we call it the golden triangle of spec from the architect, decided through the contractor / designer, hopefully they're more of a project designer, and then the decision maker, which is changing rapidly of, the briefcase builder, the developer, the design build firms, the internet has changed the savvy buyer and how that critical path is done. So some of the companies that I saw there, there's a company called Igloo. And so they basically just took, and it's a 360 sphere, because the big thing that I learned, I met with head of innovation for DeWalt, and he's like, well, we're going to be a connectivity company. I'm like, so he tells a story about it's not about drills and saws, it's about Wi-Fi in the mechanical room, but yet having codes on their Wi-Fi. Now, if Charlie takes the drill off the job site, they know where it went.
Whoa.
So that's the business where I'm there. Strucksoft is the software with Howlick is taking steel, and in 2 days they replicated a hospital. And so I'm looking at that saying, well, maybe the art of construction should work with a company like Mountain View and say, we'll supply the whole wall system of this glass house instead of trying to tie it into a rough opening that has all these. So that's another reason to answer your question of why I went there is truly to connect these dots of say how there's so many amazing things out there. How do you put them together?
I want to echo what you said about foundations and windows because I don't know how many projects I've been a part of, but we can say above 200, right? That I've physically drawn, designed, seen, or built. Foundations will break your project if done wrong. They will absolutely be a nightmare. Windows can make your project if done right. And that's the connection between those two systems is that they're so fundamental in the foundations and then the end result. Because you can have, I wouldn't say bad design, but let's say you can't afford the nicest finishes for your countertops, for your walls and all that. But if your windows are placed well and are nice, they make the space great. So whatever I forgot who you heard that from, but just from experience, I would just echo, his insight and boiling it down to those points.
And that's the thing is I'd say the same thing. I'm now we get to see so many amazing plans and come through so that's my job now is connecting our projects together for Mountain View I get to go to all these amazing job sites. We really focus on those luxury projects. And it's totally true. But you got to listen to that when you don't know and make critical moves down your path and working for others and being guided by others is key lessons in our field, especially if I like how you talked about the foundations and windows. I said, well, foundations are not fun, so I'm going to really focus on the window and door category. But it could be the best, most amazing window and door manufacturer designed perfectly by the architect, but if the person putting it in doesn't know it, it's all ruined again.
Yeah.
So it's back to this, how do you make the stuff that's quote unquote not sexy part of construction? That's truly where the money, dollars, and business is at. So you have to find a way to say, let's make installing windows and doors and foundations sexy, but you still get to be part of these projects because you can have really good thriving business from that because we're so short on those the muscles to do the work. So Art of Construction is also working on Tools 2.0 is what we're calling it, to where it's just like working smarter, not harder, like trying to utilize technology and tools and robots and lasers to not be just driving to the job site and put it in your 3-ring binder. And, how do you move that needle to be more efficient?
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question because I know that you're deep into these maybe two areas. First, let's set up everyone who has a business or is doing something is working and learning as they go. But if they want to, let's say, a force multiplier, they can do it in a couple different ways. Training or mentoring, right? Or technology. Now, my question to you, since you've been doing this, is how do you balance that? Meaning, I could read a book a week, not really, a book a month,
Yeah.
and have 12 books and have 12 systems, right? And they could all have acronyms and all that, and they're all great, but 12 books times, let's say there's an acronym in each, and each is 6 letters, can get crazy. The same thing with technology. You can use this program, this Revit, Enscape, blah, 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 BIM Smith, all these guys. How do you boil down, because you already had trouble with this at your previous job, to finding what's constructive? Because that's the real linchpin there. Yep.
So all the way down the beginning is, for me, if I put it down into one sentence, is like, know what makes you tick and get help from others to help you just thrive with that. And so when I say it, I heard on your podcast how you're doing Audible at 2 times speed. My mind doesn't work fast enough for that, so I'm slower. But I'm in a spot now where I always said I want to elevate and delegate to where I can work on the business and have people in the business, because that's where I love I love changing out and going and being the visionary for my companies. But you can't just be the visionary right off bat, because you have to have systems and doers to make it all work. So the first system was Go Ask Devon, and I was the system. So I learned how to do that, and then I just kept picking that apart. So to be constructive and make money for you and the company and everybody around you, you have to figure out what lifestyle and what you really want. Because if your mind and your passions are aligned, all that other stuff will come. And I see that when I see you and Lance, it's that. Like, I listen to the podcast and your passions, how it went from your 1 chair to your 2 chairs to now with your development. It's like you found the passions, and it's in the same way, in same field, but done totally different than how you worked for others. I was the same way. I'm doing similar things. It was just not the right fit for me. And I see so many people that just keep trying to beat a dead horse, for a lack of a better term. It's like, just step outside and really analyze yourself. Look yourself in the mirror is key, and then the rest will go.
Yeah. So this podcast is called Inside the Firm, where most of the time we are talking about our firm. But I want to talk about your firm. I know, and it's very evident that you have this vision, this passion, and you're trying to bring everything together. So that's one area that people who are looking to start firms are very interested in. But then also there's the nitty-gritty, and you have a number of employees, associates, I whatever term you call them.
Right.
Could you reveal the onion, peel back the layer of your management system of them? And this is what I mean by the nitty-gritty is, do you have, you have a bunch of projects coming in. Those get assigned to people. Do people have a workload? Do they have to see how busy they are for a project, what their success rate is, what, all that kind of management thing that I think is actually hard, because a lot of people, they start off by the seat of their pants, they grab some technology here, and I don't know if it's all put together yet. And I don't know if it's all put together for you. It might be a work in progress. But could you talk about that?
Yeah. I think you're kind of hitting on the systems that the analytics are driven, but to your management team is kind of what you're hitting. Is that kind of the vein that you're talking about there? Yeah, I'd start by, you don't know what you don't know. So
just to clarify, is you're giving people tools, but how do you know are those being effective? Are those working? Yeah. Are you hitting your revenues? Are you sharing that with your employees,
right.
Stuff like that?
So I could talk a lot about the different things I've tried and what has worked and what hasn't worked, but I can tell you what has truly worked is when you have to think big, and then you got to zoom in. It's like the art of construction is seeing this beautiful project come together, but then my window and door company, you got to be able to zoom all the way in and understand that corner detail of all the things that happen. It's the same with business. And I find that the construction industry, the contractor will go buy that new truck, or the architect will get all the new latest computer and all the gadgets that they have to have, but they don't invest in coaching and strategy and business to run a business. So you have to decide, do you want to run a business or do you want to run a hobby? Do you want to work for yourself or work for somebody else? I want to run a business, and that's and then there's other things that I start as a visionary that are not true businesses yet. They're hobbies because they don't make money. Mm-hmm. And then the people side of it is that elevate and delegate. And then you have to have analytics and data that match that up, and it's expensive to do that. So you have to decide on where you want to grow with this thing. And that's that thing back at the beginning when someone's like, well, Devon, you got to really set up a budget. I was like, my budget is I'll just go sell more. Well, that's BS. Like, you actually have to have a real budget, whether you're a numbers guy or not. And I'm not a numbers guy. So I went and got a numbers guy so that I can be the business development relationship guy. So you have to find what you're good at and what you're not good at, is where I keep going back to that. But then, so we share the numbers, but we used to share too much and it created chaos. The more you grow, the more you got to be smart about how you do that. So we rolled up numbers that used to be monthly. It was too much for my team. Now it's quarterly. We used to have a weekly all hands on deck meeting, but that was too much when you grew to too many employees. So what I'm getting at is it's all staged and it's strategical growth. But number one is get the right help, know where you want to go, and run your business in quarters. Don't try to do it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And if you look at it, we're going into the year end. If you say it's all of 2019, you're not going to be productive because it's too much and you end up just filling in the blanks. So fourth quarter's ours. That's where you got to drive it home. That's where we're at right now. But if you look at quarters, it's going to be much stronger.
What numbers did you peel back, or was that too much?
Yeah, so obviously top lines. So you can do budgets a lot of different ways. We do a hybrid approach. First off, we have our sales team that we put the old adage of nothing happens till you sell something. So we start by we call them business directors of what the business director per location, their trusted advisors are going to sell. And we're really big on not looking at I call it the 2% paradigm shift in corporate. They just look at it and tweak the dots. That's why this is coming in. And once the people that are all ready to retire fall off, it's going to be this big paradigm shift. So I look at last year, but I'm looking in the front. I'm not looking at that little rear view mirror. I'm looking at the front, and it starts by what your numbers are going to say from your sales, and then how much the sales, what's it going to cost to get you those sales. And that sounds pretty basic, but people lose touch of those metrics. So how much you're going to sell, what's it going to cost, and how much you're going to have at the end of the day. And maybe next year you're going to say, hey, nothing at the end of the day, because you're going to invest into an experience center that I talked about, or in this new person. Or you better say, do you want to sell this business? That's the other big thing, is do you want to have this business to hold forever, or do you want to sell the business? And I'm big on, the E-Myth Revisited, and now we've adopted the entrepreneur operating system, is setting it up to, if it ever were to be sold, because what are you building this for? So,
yeah.
Did that answer your question? It's a lot of veins to go there to say, what do you track? I track sales, and it's per job that it's profitable, and my people get paid when we get paid and it's profitable. That's really how we run the business.
And then quarterly, you review that with everyone.
Well, we've worked really hard on having live data. That the marathon part is running nonstop, but we once a quarter sit down and look at our key KPIs, how we're doing quarter after quarter. Yep. So there's the CFO presentation, there's the marketing presentation, there's what we call my integrator who runs all the day-to-day business, and then there's me, the visionary, saying about how I went to Autodesk University and all these. I'm looking out 3 years.
What is that live data? And is that just to you and maybe your, let's call it C-suite, upper, or is it, hey, everyone can see, oh, this project went through, that,
It depends on the scale of the company, and I talk too much, and I call that the Seagull CFO or Seagull CEO that's going around shitting on everybody. If you have strategic management in place, but if you don't, if you're everything, then you got to let everybody know. But when you put something in the middle, and that's what the entrepreneur operating system would guide you to say, it's all about your integrator. And the integrator is who makes all the decisions. So I have 2-hour meetings weekly with my integrators and tell them everything about what I'm doing, and they disseminate that to their level 10 leadership team, that then they go to their teams, and it's all filtering up and down to get the right communication to the right person.
Awesome. Cool. So you started your podcast 4 years ago.
Right.
What has changed or evolved in the podcast, or not? And then what has changed or evolved in your business because of the podcast? And I feel like that second one's a big one, and maybe we already kind of talked about it.
Yeah. So for the first 2 years, I would say I run a podcast, The Art of Construction, and I found after I started saying that, most people didn't even know what a podcast was. So I flipped it upside down and say, hey, do you listen to podcasts? And it was like, why did I do that? It's like, so when you actually get to the average Joe or Josette, they don't like, when I speak window and door, we go, because we just think everybody does. When we speak podcasts, because that's what you do. Yeah. But the other side of the table doesn't. So I spent a lot of time educating people about what a podcast was for the first couple of years, and then hopefully they would listen, and then it would grow. And that's why I started is because I started listening to a couple, but there just wasn't enough of them out there. That's why I started it. And it was started with the logo of my window and door company, but we didn't talk about windows and doors. We talked for the whole time. I bootstrapped this. There's no sponsor. It's literally whoever I'm talking to, that's what it's for. And then the whole thing, I call it my Art of Construction tribe, and the whole thing was about building an audience that all has each other back, that now we're putting them on Art of Construction back to connect the dots is where we're at now.
Yeah. Another two-parter. What are you excited about in your business that you're doing now, have just, implemented? And what are you excited about that you might do in the future? And it might be so far in the future that you haven't even formally discussed it. It's just an idea, sort of a dream that you think you could reach or go to.
Yes, so what I'm so excited about is the Experience Center. So in June, we opened Junction Station, and we're getting all the plans put together now, but it's taking longer for Denver Station, which is going to be in my location here in Denver, is that we're really putting the modeling together for AR, VR, and all the Matterport scanning, and we're doing all these things before, so that we truly have this test lab. So that's what I'm really excited about, is to be actually using these tools, and then in the future have them available to others, to where you can come into these experience centers and have a 360 igloo where you don't have to put goggles on and the stuff that's clunky a bit, but being that true forward-thinking place that can take these resources and put them together. And then that's what the Art of Construction is helping these experience centers do, and we'll see where that goes, because I think there's a business behind that of connecting those.
Yep. That's
truly open, and it's not saying you have to be Revit or ArchiCAD or this or that. It's a true open experience center that everybody's welcome to bring their tools and learn from each other.
And then is that what you are also excited about in the future? Or do you have another thing up your sleeves? I always wonder if you have...
The future is truly that, is to be the source that it's not about, it's only sponsored by this. We have to make revenue on this. So the Deep Dive series is the different companies, or one company that hires us to do a deep dive series would pay for that, but it wouldn't be about sponsored by this. We wouldn't talk about that. How we talk about that is by building trust and to being a guide to build that trust from what they're all about, and more of a case study format than a product and pitch format.
So would it just be one episode on one deep dive, or would that be multiple? Well, and can you kind of give an example? It doesn't have to be someone you're in talks to, but so just a generic example.
This would be a great one for because I know you're heavily involved with the Entree Architect and a lot of these great platforms, that I would love your platform's feedback to the Art of Construction. That's what's been fun, is all of us podcasters having on each other's shows. You were actually on my first deep dive series that we did about offsite construction, that I actually interviewed you guys on and brought in a guest host, and we're figuring out how to do that. But one of the ideas that I've been talking with different people, that Ben from BIM Smith did a great presentation at Mark Mitchell's Wizard Summit I was at, that he brought it down to my level where I understood. He started, the first slide was saying, "What's this?" And it was a square, and then the next slide showed the Revit model of the desk, that you actually knew it was a desk instead of the top of the. And he's like, "This is what building information modeling is." And I was like, I get that. And it sounds like, wow, that's pretty basic. Yeah, it's as basic as you can, but that's what we're trying to do. And then it's like, well, I learn about all these BIM managers. It's like, so so this is one of the titles of a deep dive series that would be, BIM is not a product, it's part of the process. So then on the front end, you could talk about the different ArchiCAD, Revit, and then you can have the different Matterports or scanners or different things to take this BIM object in the middle of that to then what do you do with it, in an experience center, out in the job site, needing Wi-Fi connectivity with DeWalt or whatever. So these are all the companies I'm talking to say this would be 8 episodes that are each 1 hour with 8 different companies, but at the end of it, you'd invest 8 hours and it'd be every other Thursday. So it would take, but then at the end of it, hopefully we're going on this journey together that we've connected the dots. That's the vision behind it.
I think it's a great idea. I really look forward to it. Cool. Could you give some advice to someone who's in a firm, doesn't matter if it's architecture, construction, just someone working at a firm about what they can do to help themselves grow? Because you see people who thrive, who fail, who do a good job and don't, and either what have those people done or what has helped them?
I look at it as the pedal and the brake syndrome. It's like it's too much. It's either someone's pedal to the metal, they come in and like, we need to change your logo. They're just so gung ho, and then they just wear everybody out. Or then there's the person that's just constantly on the brakes or sitting in the passenger seat, just waiting to check the box on that. And there's a time and a place to put the pedal down, and there's a time and place to listen. So and who are the influencers in that company is the key of connecting. And it's all about relationships at the end of the day. Help me help you, because we're all trying to grow this thing together, especially in our construction world, because we need so much help because we're all spread so thin.
Yeah. If someone was never going to hear from you again, now this is for someone that's going to start a business, because you've started a business very successful, and you had to leave them with either a book or a concept or someone to model themselves off. This is Devon Tilly's, hey, you're starting something, go get this or understand this concept, and that has really helped me out, and I think it'll help you out. What would you say to them?
Yeah. Number one is go read the E-Myth Revisited. That's the first thing you have to do if you've never done anything about business or haven't read all these specifics, because that's the best overview. And then nothing happens until you sell something. So then you gotta read Versatile Selling, which is the old IBM principles. And so that book is going to teach you how to sell 4 different ways to 4 different people. And it's not about the product and pitch. It's about selling you and your team to align. So when you get the E-Myth Revisited and Versatile Selling, from me reading those books, and I wish someone would have told me this and I just did it right away, because I just did. And that's another important thing, is it's better to go do and screw up. Good is good enough sometimes to get you going until you figure out where you're going to go. But then you got to hire someone that's opposite of you, and you got to be smart enough to understand to say they're not you, because you got to divide and conquer is where you're going to go, and then get help. Like create an advisory council, of either join or start an advisory council. I advise people to start or really be running that, of something that's like-minded, and then create a personal board of directors, because you're going to have to get help, money, resources at times. So an advisory council is your business platform, and your personal board of directors is yours. And if you're married, you better have that significant other on that board.
Very funny. As we wrap up, anything you want to cover or leave people with?
No, I did. I really just wanted to come out here and, as a fan of you guys, wanted to say thanks to. I mean, it's really cool to see F9, F10, F11. I mean, it's just, you guys keep going. And you need to hear that, because it's sometimes you're like, man, why do us visionaries get these ideas, and sometimes you're like, am I doing the right thing? And you're doing the right thing. Like listening to you guys, it's just awesome to hear and see your story, and I can't wait to continue the collaboration. And that's how I look at our different podcast platforms, is how do we all best work together? And the art of construction is trying to be that BHAG, or the big, hairy, audacious goal at the top, is to truly align and connect the overarching art and construction.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're obviously a huge fan of you also. And I'm sure some of the listeners will be too. So tell them how to follow you, reach out to you, where to listen, all that.
Yeah, so our producer, we do a lot of work on each show where we create a custom webpage show notes. So if there's one that really dives in, but it all starts from the website of theaoc.us. That's the website, and then we're on all the platforms and social media. I love LinkedIn. I love connecting and guiding, and that's where I'm at. So if people are interested on this deep dive series, we're looking to do a couple of those next year and trying to dial those in. And what are the best partners to help take our Go Giver philosophy and put it to market?
Awesome. Thanks,
Cool,
Devon.
man. Thanks.